I gotta back up a bit.
Wow.
Okay?
That's it?
That's it.
That was pretty intimidating, eh? Funny thing about truth and lies, I mentioned it as a part of a conversation because I used to do phone intakes, talk to a lot of parents. And as you get to know people, you know, it goes both ways. When you talk to some of the parents, other than the physical damage that we do, one of the things they say the hardest thing to deal with is all the lies, you know, and as addicts we tell lies. It ain't like, I'm going to go out on a Friday night and I'm going to, hey mom, dad, I'm going to go out, get really drunk tonight, probably steal a police car, I want to get laid, and I'll see you tomorrow. And, you know, so you can never tell them the truth. You know, one of the rhythms that happens in addiction is lies. You know, and to cover up what's happening, what we're doing, what we're going to do, what we're thinking about. So eventually you get to the point there's no communication. And, you know, a lot of parents, you know, that's the conversation. It's the lies. And one of the first reliefs they get in recovery is we get better, even a little bit. Get a few nights sleep, few meals into you, stop the damage, is the lies stop. As long as we're dealing with just today, and that's one of the beautiful things about the program, is just for today. You know, like just for today, you know, I'm in a meeting and a guy gets up to the podium and he says, it's amazing, you know, I just went the whole day and never lied once. And people are like, wow. Like what other environment do you see that? They're not talking like that in church, you know what I mean? But they do talk about honesty, integrity, morals and values and all that stuff. But for addicts, a guy's in a meeting saying, you know, I went to the corner store and I gave them $10. They gave me too much change and I gave it back. And it's a pivotal moment, a moment of change, you know, a moment of integrity, a moment to where that you're breaking that chain. You know, that everything is so connected that's dragging you into addiction. And again, it's about the lies. So, you know, weeks into recovery, you know, some of the parents, they're feeling the relief, you know, that, and we're giving them suggestions like, as best you can, stay out of the past, just leave it alone for a little while, you know, let's get well. You know, spend some days practicing recovery and stopping the lying and stopping the stealing. And, you know, early recovery is stopping the damage. That's what we're talking about. And, you know, for us as addicts, it's just like, I lie about everything. You know, where I was, who I'm with, what's happening next, what I'm thinking about. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm okay, but I got a rope over the rafters. You know what I mean? That's how well I lie to myself. I lie to everybody, you know, and it's so integral in addiction. You know, it just becomes that. And, you know, and I guess lying to yourself is the big one. You know, I don't care, no big deal. It's not that bad. I'm not as bad as, you know, oh, this bullet hole, it's okay. You know, no big deal. I got a Band-Aid on it. You know, I don't, the blood stopped coming out, so I'm going to be okay. You know, it's endless amounts of lies that we tell ourselves. So no wonder we're lying to everybody else. So in recovery, as you start the steps and you read the book and you go to meetings and you see that person share, I just went a whole day without lying. That's the modeling of behavior. That's that if he can do it, I can do it. And you become aware of it. That's the point of the journal. You know, you do a little writing and you look at that beginning and then you have that day. And I remember I did it too. It was like, yeah, mostly I shut all day. That really helped because if I was talking, I was lying. You know, I was telling stories. I make them bigger. I make them smaller. You know, it wasn't a pound of dope. It was a ton of dope. You know what I mean? Lots of it was identity stuff, ego stuff. You know, covering insecurities. Like it was, you know, a habit. And you know, writing that journal and reading the literature and getting something else in my head and listening to other people who were just doing their best on that day was a major influence. And I mean, at the time I had no idea how important that was going to be to staying clean. Like, and the big one is if I feel like using, I got to tell somebody. Because before, if I felt like using, I wouldn't tell anybody and I would end up loaded. Big surprise. I didn't realize that if you tell somebody, it takes the power away from it. You can engage them, you can get some help with that, because that's our biggest obstacle in the beginning is, man, when I feel like using, I get loaded. Oh, the consequences, I don't care. Oh, you could die, it doesn't matter. You know, you realize like I want to use. And then as soon as I learned how to tell somebody, hey, I feel like using, and the power went away, and I had to tell somebody who didn't feel like using, because if you looked around the room and figured out who felt like using and told them, that might go bad. You know what I mean? So you might want to tell somebody who's really in the game, in the rhythm, because I do want to be clean. I really do, in spite of myself. And then 30 days in, all of a sudden it wasn't in spite of myself so much. It was more like, I'm really into this. And by another 30 days, it was like, I can't believe how good I'm feeling. And if you took out an inventory at that point, is I'm not stealing, I'm not lying, I'm not telling the stories, I don't need them anymore. People are actually getting to know me and they like me. So I don't have to play that game and have that identity, you know what I mean? There used to be a saying, you know, if you came off the street, it'd be like, you know, leave your attitude on the street or stay on the street with it. You know what I mean? It doesn't work in reality. Like when you're in jail and you're acting like a convict, it fits, you know, it's your space, your protection, you know, all of that. But if you get out of jail acting like a convict, it's a guarantee you're going back. You know, it doesn't work anywhere else in the world like that. So in recovery, you know, what works in recovery? You know, what's the rhythm? And then when you hear people saying things like, yeah, man, I was honest all day. And you see people being honest, you know, telling their story, the truth about where they came from and what happened. You know, you get moved to do it yourself. You know, that's the rhythm of recovery. You know, and then you just feel a little bit better. Well, no shit, I feel a little bit better. I don't got this big game going, no shenanigans. You know, it's easy. Like, it's easy to tell the story because it's the same later. You didn't have to watch what you told him and what you told her and what you told him, and it's all going to come crashing in on you at some point because you can't keep it straight, right? You know, the truth is the truth. And we used to call it the truth, and the truth. It was one of the therapeutic techniques. It's what I thought was the truth when I got here, and it was. Under a little bit of scrutiny and a few days clean, I realized there was a lot of bullshit in that first truth. So I have my second truth. And then I could tell that story. The third truth is when I've decided that I need to change, because I don't want to be like that, I don't want to feel like that, and I don't want to do that anymore. And by the time I get to that third truth, it's integral to who I am as a person in recovery, rather than, yeah, what? I'm going to come into recovery and still stay the guy who was on the street? You know, you want to be clean, but you want to be a junkie? You know? Like that's an identity, like some kind of superpower or something? You know what I mean? Like I would like to shoot a little higher than that, right? So you get to that third truth, and ultimately there's a lot of freedom at that point. You know, a lot of laughers, you can engage, people get to know you. I use an example like this. You walk in a meeting and people know you. And you walk in a meeting and there's familiarity and there's comfort. And you walk in that room and people, they're happy to see you, you know. Like sometimes there's a lot of energy, you know, in a meeting. And there's a lot of conversation. There's a lot going on. And it seems a little strange at first. Like everybody knows each other and I don't know anybody. I'll never fit in here. And then you watch and it's just like that engagement. And then a little while later, people start to know your name, and it's like, hey, man, good to see you. That's liberating. That liberates you from addiction. That liberates you from that pressure and that insanity, you know, brings you back to sanity. Just you know, somebody's happy to see you. You know, some guys are going to go do something. They're going to go snowboarding. They're going to go hiking. They're going to go swimming. They're going to do something. They're like, hey, man, you want to come? You know, you get included. You're a part of. You know, like this summer, the guys hiked up the Chief, and all I said when I talked with a few of them is make sure the new guys don't go near the edge. I don't know about you, man. When I was brand new, it was like I was pulled towards the edge. You know, it's like, this could be dangerous. And, you know, guys get up there and they have this spiritual moment. It's like, you know, it's a real struggle, eh, Colin? He almost died on the way up. You know, and then when other guys have done the gross grind and the same thing, and they get up there, and the guys are like, yeah, right on, and there's this energy, and you know, you did it, and we're together, and there's unity, and you're a part of, and they're up there, and a lot of the newer guys are saying, you know, like that was my first spiritual awakening. And I say, well, you know, being on the Chief, the View? No, being with the guys, being with the other guys, being a part of, feeling that unity, feeling that connection, you know. And it's the opposite of those lies and that story and illusions and that false identity that we've developed to protect ourselves or to keep our addiction going. As soon as you stop with that, your addiction starts to die. It doesn't have the hold on you. You start thinking things like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to be a part of that anymore. You get excited, you get interested, you know. Because if you get bored in recovery, you're in deep shit. You know what I mean? All of a sudden you'll tell yourself, you know what, I'd rather be loaded than feel like this. You know, that spun up kind of logic. You know, if this is recovery, I'd rather be loaded. No, that's not recovery, that's relapse. You know, and have you been doing any of the basics? Are you included? Are you a part of, right? And you, in the journal and in the steps, you get to ask yourself those kinds of questions, right? So the guys who climbed the chief were saying this, that the spiritual awakening was being a part of, you know, feeling connected. And it wasn't just being on the chief, it was the trip there, climbing up that thing, which I guess when you're brand new is pretty difficult because you're not quite in shape yet, you know. And then the trip back, and then the meeting that night and the next day, you know, the energy and the conversations, and you know, like you just feel good. You know, I use an example of, you know, coming in early recovery that like I just didn't feel good, you know, like, and I get high, you know, my normal was so low at that point, you know, that brand new recovery, everything made me happy, you know. It's like a good meal. It's just like, yeah, you know. Eating was good. You know, I had a good dump I wanted to show somebody. Look, do you fucking believe this? That was a spiritual awakening. One of them moments, man. You know, and then we have, I mean, we laugh about everything. Like everything seemed funny, and I think those are the symptoms of coming back to life, you know, that you know, that you can feel, and it isn't just all a bunch of shit, you know, that you start caring about the people around you. So, you know, that was my idea around the lies and breaking that connection in that cycle. Good, Giuseppe? All right.